Welcome to Real Flix Reviews. We're like a book club for people who hate reading. This month's theme is the 1970s, so we picked The Godfather, made in 1972, and we bring you movie news at the end of the program. This week we have Jonathan Charney, James Stevens, Ryan Preston, and Robert Charney, the old guy.
Old guy's here.
So who has the description of this movie?
All right. The aging patriarch of an organized crime dynasty transfers control of his clandestine empire to his reluctant son.
You got to make these synopsises of the movies easier to pronounce, huh?
No, I think they're fun this way. It makes you really think.
What are they trying to say, really?
So who wants to go first? I say let's go make Ryan go first.
Well, I was going to say, you're the odd man out. I don't think you've seen this one before, haven't you?
Are you kidding me?
Nope.
This is the first time you saw this movie?
Yeah, I'm generally not a big fan of gangster movies. So.
Wow.
But he likes The Untouchables.
Wow.
Wow. That's a terrible, terrible excuse.
Isn't it?
That might be the worst excuse ever for not seeing this movie.
He's not quiet.
You should have just said you never heard of it.
You know, well, he probably, not to take the time to see this movie is a disgrace to a movie buff.
But my thing would be, how would you say you never heard of it?
No, I've heard of it. I just
have
never
lived and not have heard of this movie.
Yeah,
you just didn't think, you didn't realize how good it was.
I'm not sure if I would go that far. The first thing I'd have to say is this movie actually has an insane cast.
It does.
Even some of them may not have been big stars then, but you got Robert Duvall, Al Pacino, Marlon Brando, Abe Vigoda, but by God, that guy must have been born at 60 years old. Diane Keaton and James Caan.
Don't forget John Cazale.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So the cast in this movie was amazing.
Oh, yeah, Richard Conte, too.
Yeah.
I mean, for this day, this movie must have been star-studded.
It was awesome. That's the only way I can explain it. I mean, in 1972, when Godfather came out, it was just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, that had to be the greatest thing up until that point, right?
I mean, yeah, like you said, look at this cast, and I'm going to jump all over you since you were going to start, Jonathan, but I guess I got to tell you, I loved this movie. I mean, to me, now this is a movie, and this is the way to make a movie. And, Francis Ford Coppola just, so many new things came up in this movie, the way he did the cinematography, the way he did the soft transitions, the way he did...
the tone was the most consistent thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, unbelievable. The score, with it was just amazing. Incredible.
I was going to say, I love how they set basically the tone of this movie when they're at that wedding. And Al Pacino's character sits down with this girl, and he talks about that crooner and how they got that crooner on the contract. And he says, "My dad gave him an offer he couldn't refuse." And she says, "What do you mean?" And he says, one person held a gun to his head, the other one person had the release form, and he had to choose. It was either the brains all over the wall or lose a singer."
No, he said either the brains are going to be on the paper or his signature.
Yeah. Close enough, but yeah, James is the actual right.
But I mean, man, that's how many quotable things are in this movie. How many times have you heard the references, John, without knowing where they came from? Apparently,
I actually knew where they came from. I mean,
funny papers.
At least this movie's better than Scarface.
Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
Wait,
Scarface. How could he even say those two things in the same sentence?
Wait, didn't you hear what I said? At least this movie's better.
I understand, but you still said the two words in the same sentence.
Because they're gangster movies.
Oh, Lord.
That's sacrilege.
It is.
Take your pinky finger.
Yes.
Jeez. I got to say, the one scene I was actually disappointed by was the horse head scene. That was not nearly as what, everybody says it was.
Oh, at the time it was...
Oh, yeah. Well, no.
30 years of build-up.
Yeah, how would you like to wake up with his prize $500,000
$700,000 you spent on a horse
head in your
My
bed?
favorite reaction, I was reading on the notes, it said something like the guy in the scene didn't know the horse head was going to be there, so the reaction was real.
Well, How did he not know the damn horse head was going to be there?
It was so.
Did they really make him fall asleep?
Well, as they're pouring blood all over him, and they're saying, "Don't look at what we're sticking in the bed."
That's what I read.
Pay no attention to us.
Just climb in the bed and don't look under the sheets.
Don't say a word.
Well,
Close your eyes.
You got to take a little bit for granted, so I'm not 100% sure if it's real, but that would be cool if it was. The one thing I thought was interesting and why they didn't want Al Pacino to be in the family, as it were. They tried really hard to keep him distance from being the gangster, and I thought that was the most interesting part of the movie.
Well, Marlon Brando, Don Vito Corleone, he said that he didn't want him part of it. He wanted to have a different life.
Yeah.
Because he had created such a dynasty that he could take that one son and let him have a better life.
Yeah.
Well, the inference is he came back as a war hero. They don't talk about that, but apparently he did something. And I think the reference was to maybe we can get him in politics and run for office.
Yes.
And you see.
So he wouldn't be like a violent, paying dues type of member, but he would still have, he'd still be in the family.
He'd still have pull, and that's what he kind of said was Senator Corleone.
Yeah.
So I thought that part was interesting. That and the other part was the Sonny, how everybody was telling him to calm down, and and even the other gangsters at some point the end didn't really like him.
Yeah, Sonny had a little bit of a temper problem.
But I kind of understand that when he finds out his sister got beat up by that guy.
Keeps getting beat up by that guy. You think he would have gotten it?
Yeah.
Right? You would think that beating up a gangster's sister wouldn't exactly be the smartest maneuver
That's what my wife said is, wait, he did what?
Yeah.
Is he stupid?
Yeah.
Does he have a death wish?
But wasn't he later on in the scene beating up his own wife?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, hey,
but,
beat up his wife, you just don't beat up his sister.
They show, the thing of the mistresses, and that gets explained later, is that, mobsters, after they have a kid with their wife, they don't want to touch her because she's a mother now. So that's why they get a mistress. It's so strange.
Jeez. I got to say, though, I still think the pacing of this movie was actually pretty much consistent through the whole movie. That was the one thing that really struck me. It didn't change. It pretty much was tense from the get-go.
One of the things that I want to see if you guys agree with is I always thought Marlon Brando overacted it too much with the way he talked and addressed his lines.
He really got into the part. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, he really did, didn't he?
Yeah,
I think he pushed it too far.
That's Brando, though.
I thought he was if Don Corleone had a stroke. I mean, that's kind of the...
Yeah, he had like a stroke on both sides of his face. So.
Right,
yeah,
right.
That was kind of the way that I interpreted, or just, something was wrong with him. Was kind
Brando had a way...
He said he wanted it to look like a bulldog. So he stuffed his cheeks with cotton in the audition, and then for the movie he wore like a mouthpiece.
Right. This is the way Brando acted, though. He would immerse himself in the role, and knowing Brando and seeing some of the other films, it was fit perfect.
I'm gonna have to see what he did for the Wild
One. The slap that when he slapped Fontaine in that scene, he wasn't supposed to do that.
Yeah, that was.
And what's his name? James Caan, who was sitting in the corner, said he didn't know whether to shit or go blind.
I guess for me, the one surprise role in this one was the Robert Duvall character.
Yeah.
That was, to me, that was interesting because you could see they tried to not really have him be in the family, but he was at the same time. The distance in that character I thought was very well written.
I liked that character. I thought Robert Duvall did a fantastic job with that character. But like they said, he was a peacetime advisor, concierge. I can't
Consigliere?
Consigliere.
Yeah, Consigliere.
But he was a peacetime one, and they were moving into a transition where they were going to have to make some difficult decisions and kind of start their own little war. So that's kind of why they had him for the peacetime. But when they moved into that wartime, they're kind of like, you got to step back because you're not going to like these decisions.
But he was still part of it, which to me I thought was weird. And the part where I thought you could see how much stroke he has when he tried to get that director, so you're going to let this guy in, and and he said, in the next scene, he said, "Why didn't you tell me you were with him?" I said, "I try not to use his name."
One of my favorite characters is Barzini. I liked him.
Barzini?
Yeah, he was the one that was sitting there reading the thing at the wedding.
Oh, yeah. Don, thank you.
Yeah.
May your first child be a masculine child.
He kept doing it over and over and over again.
I liked the way he played that. And I thought it was always sad the way that he got taken out.
Yeah, he really did.
How harsh that was.
Come on. I mean, what I thought was interesting is he put on a bulletproof vest for that period of time. And they were pretty crude at that period of time.
They're practically flak
vests. They didn't really work. And I thought that was interesting, but had nothing to do with the story because there he was taken out with a garrote, with a wire. Yeah.
I like the reason why, though. If you, like, later on they say, you're going to have to stop him because he won't stop.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That was the part I thought was cool, that he was such a guy that, if you hurt my Don, I'm going after you no matter what.
Well, obviously it had been muscle for them, and that's what they were afraid of. I mean,
and they kind of go into a little bit of this in the second Godfather, which I still think De Niro did a great job in that one, playing Vito Corleone, a young Vito Corleone.
Yeah, Vito Corleone.
And that's one of the things that kind of bugged me watching this one and knowing the second one and everything, is that the way that De Niro played it and the way that Brando played it, you could kind of see how they meshed, but I got to go back to that thing of that's where I see like Brando overacting.
Well, would you say like the characters meshing far as their styles, or like the characters, like both characters were really smart? Like Al Pacino's character was heads above and more intelligent than his brother, who got gunned down. Like the way
Al Pacino plays the son, and De Niro plays the young dad.
Yeah.
Before he became Don.
Well, I meant.
So that's what I'm thinking.
Oh, okay.
Are you talking about the Dons?
No, I'm sorry. What I was talking about.
We're mixing stories.
I was
here.
talking about
mixing stories now.
Brando's character and Al Pacino's character, like those meshing.
Oh no.
Well, let's just be sure that this is a movie you can see a few times and start kind of getting into the the nuance of the family and how it runs. I mean, this whole saga, is basically explaining just the family and the five families,
Yeah. And I was going to say, if you want to know how groundbreaking this movie is, the Mafia actually started taking after some of the characters after this movie came out, and it apparently had to get one of the, I forgot which family actually kind of approved of this, and I guess some of them got roles in this movie.
Oh, really?
But I was reading an interview by one of some guy in it said, they started dressing in suits, and apparently, according to the guy, said they never really did that until this movie came out.
That doesn't surprise me.
Like, they actually started becoming, like a stereotypical gang, mafia guy, which I thought was hilarious.
Well, I mean, one of the great things about this movie is before The Godfather, there really wasn't too much. It completely changed the way everybody looked at mob movies. I mean, it got everybody to forget about the James Cagney and like Edward G. Robinson kind of shit from like the 1930s, which was pretty much the only other mob movies. There's always been crime movies, but this one, it really took everything sort of to the next level.
Well, I think what this one, in my opinion, what it did is that the other ones were kind of cartoon characters, but the feel of this one was like you could actually see this happening. I think unlike the Cagney ones that were a little cartoony, a little, just...
I'm gonna get you, see?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I mean, you got stuff like Maltese Falcon, which bridged the gap, maybe a little bit, but...
No, this one, I would have to say this one is classier in comparison to the other ones. There was a lot of things that brought history into it, like them going back to the old country and wandering around Italy. That and they, to me, they always kind of started off with that, is that they're at the wedding, and the Don cannot really say no.
Right.
During his daughter's wedding, because he's supposed to be a happy guy and he wants everything to go smooth. So anything you ask, he grants.
I think the best thing about this movie is it doesn't speak down to people. It does kind of throw you into it, but it doesn't. It doesn't speak down to you by explaining everything all at once.
Thing.
I mean, it does explain, but the way it actually treats you is it tells it through the story, which is not always done today.
Yeah.
Which I thought was probably the best part of this movie is how they explained how the mob works, how the family works, what the consigliere's job was. All that I thought was really well written.
And I like the fact that at the hospital they brought Al Pacino brought in Michael Corleone, brought the baker and said, "Hey, you just stand out in front of the building,
right,
and try to look tough, and I'll be down in a moment."
Try to light a cigarette.
But what they don't kind of tell you is that when they were going by to see if it was clear to make a hit, is you see one guy standing out front, you kind of expect there's more going to be inside.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So you don't want to mess with it. That's kind of why he pulled
that was a
that
genius move on his part.
Yeah. Unless you see the guys going like this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, really, that was.
Oh, the other part was it leave the gun, take the cannoli?
Yeah.
Was improvised. That was,
He's a fat man. He wants the cannoli.
Hey.
It's a good thing. Cannoli.
Cannolis are awesome.
Yeah, it is.
But one of the most iconic scenes always is the gun being put behind the toilet.
Yeah, the tank.
And then he comes in, and I mean, just
you
how they
almost think
told him how to do it.
There? I mean, because for a moment it's like, oh shit, it's not here, and.
But I like how they walked him through it. Okay, you shoot them both, close range,
and
then you drop your hands down, and then slip the gun out and walk out. Don't make eye contact with anybody, but don't break your gaze.
Yeah.
Make them think you still got that gun.
The only thing I was hoping they were going to stuff his fingers or dollar bills down the cop's throat or something. That was one thing I was hoping for. But I did love how he shot the cop down, in the throat.
Throat first.
And then
he wanted to get back. That was payback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You break my jaw, I shoot you in the throat.
Yeah, and then I shoot you in the head.
Well, by the way, that was the best looking broken jaw I've ever seen.
You know what was amazing though? It did his bruising and his puffiness lasted quite a while.
Oh yeah, he's all around Italy with it.
Yeah, man, my God, he really got smacked, didn't he?
And I always thought it was a little harsh how he forgot about the girl in the States.
Well, that was actually my question. Did he forget, or he just wanted a woman in Italy and a woman in the States?
I think he was trying to move on. He didn't know how long he was going to be there.
Well, he didn't know. That's right. He
in.
didn't know how long, and he said, "Hey, I make a life here for right now." So,
I am wondering why did the car explode? That was the one thing I never understood.
Because they put a bomb in it.
Well, one of his protectors turned.
Yeah.
You remember the guy? Pacino looks at him and he kind of like runs off.
Yeah.
And she's saying, "Oh, I'm going to drive to you," and he's about to tell her no, and boom.
Was it like another family got to him, or like that's
because the five families still have ties in Italy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So they said if you find this guy,
so they found him, right? And I'm sure he got paid well.
You expect the Corleones to be the only family that still has ties in Italy?
In all honesty, I just didn't get that part. I figured somebody got to him, but they didn't explain more than.
It kind of got slipped out in the States that he was in Italy,
right?
And then the families looked for him and then found him.
That's right, because one of the guys told the girl, and she, something like that.
Well, it gets explained later in the movie who actually told.
Oh,
in the
okay.
Series.
Yeah.
Well,
I got you.
Later in the trilogy.
Yeah, later in the series, the trilogy, whatever.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, and that's how. Anyways, you should watch the rest of it, John. Watch the second and third one.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Now, we were talking a little bit before the show that, the first two movies were made in the 70s, and then the third one was made in the 90s, and we were trying to figure out why that was, and I'm kind of assuming it was just to get some age on Pacino.
Or maybe he just he could have not been interested until
Coppola? You could make all kinds of guesses. Maybe there wasn't a decent script yet written. There wasn't. Who knows?
See, from what I see about Coppola, the script thing can make sense. So does the age thing, but the script I can really see. Maybe he just didn't write one that just said, "Oh, this needs to be made."
You mean like he didn't like it, and then he
I think it's a good example
and moved on
of the first movie just being so damn good that it's hard to make the second and then the third movie as well to really
I mean, everybody says that the second movie is the better one out of the three anyway. I mean,
always do.
They say, "Oh wow, better than the first." So I mean, maybe he just couldn't come up with something like damn, everybody's going to expect me to the third one to be better than the second one now, and keep my streak alive, but
that's a hell of a lot to live up to.
It's a lot of pressure.
But even still, I say, the third one wrapped everything up nicely, but it was lacking how good the second one was.
Well, I mean, it could be like the Wachowskis. Like, everybody says the first Matrix was awesome, but the ones after that, the second or third one, are one of the worst pieces of cinema ever. So, I could see why, as a director, you want.
Shyamalan Ding Dong is.
You want your two movies. You want your sequels to really live up to the first one.
I understand that.
I was gonna say I could see that, and I could also see why he wouldn't want to make a bad movie.
Yeah,
it would be difficult to try to best this movie.
Yeah, and I say he did it with the second one, but I still like this one a lot. I think the acting is very well done. I still say Brando pushed it too far in a few scenes for me. Mostly the scene when they're sitting there and he's talking to him and he says, "Okay, this is how they're gonna come at you," and then they start talking about family and he's just kind of like, "Oh, the funny papers, huh? The funny papers."
So what would you give this movie? What would your rating be for The Godfather?
I can't drop it down any, but it's a 4 for me. And there's, like I said, I don't like this one as much as the second one, but that doesn't take away from how good of a movie this is.
Rob?
So, the way I look at a 5 has to be just absolutely mind-blowing. And I think this movie is close to that if you look at the time. I mean, I just absolutely love this movie. I think it is a classic. People say things from the movie all the time. He swims with the fishes. There's all kinds of things that we use in today's lexicon that come from this movie. That's saying a lot. And, so I'm not going to give it a 5. I'm going to give it a 4. But I got to tell you, I just absolutely love this movie because I think this is a way that a lot of young directors coming up looked at Francis Ford Coppola and looked at the way he put this movie together, the pacing, the cinematography, the script, the music, everything was just really, really thought out well. And so I'll give it a 4.
Ryan?
I have to pretty much agree with everything Rob just said. To me, the pacing was the one standout thing, especially watching it nowadays. It's so perfect, from beginning to end. It makes it watchable, so many years later.
Right.
Everybody can watch this movie, and, now, and new generations after generations will still continue to like it. Yeah, man, this movie totally rocks, and it's one of the few 3-hour movies that I'll sit through. You know what I mean? Like again.
Yeah. I agree.
At least there wasn't an intermission in an odd place in this movie. I'll give it a 4 to 5. I mean, I'll be honest, this isn't my favorite movie ever made, mainly because I'm not a giant fan of mobster style movies. But overall, it's very well made.
You have some mobsters in your family, so be careful.
Yep.
Thankfully, they're sleeping with the Fishins because they've been dead for 40 years. Overall, it just, it's a 4 to 5. Maybe not as strong as it is for everybody else, but it's not a bad movie. And the second or third one have a lot to live up to. So.
It's interesting.
Well, you got some looking forward to for the second one.
Yeah, you do. Roger Ebert, I was just looking at his, he really got into details about this film, and for him, it's 4 stars out of 4, so, I mean, he really liked the rating, and if you go back and look at the overall, it's a 9.2,
which is very high.
Which is pretty high, yeah.
That's one of the highest I've ever seen on IMDb.
Yeah. Yeah, so obviously this movie is well loved by many.
Next part is the movie news section. Before we start that, I want to say our sorrows and for
this one's a 9.1.
Oh.
For the people, the family members of Philip Seymour Hoffman who died over the weekend.
Oh yeah, that's tragic.
That's bummed me out.
I think it was tragic but predictable. I've seen a number of interviews with this guy talking about there isn't a drug he hasn't loved.
And he apparently, according to the recent news, unfortunately, he relapsed and, You know, there was movies he was in
Big Lebowski.
There's a new series
Almost
he's in.
Famous,
The Catching Fire.
Mission Impossible 3, Capote.
Hunger Games. There's a sequel. There's a series
Yeah,
he's in right
Mission
now.
Impossible
Hunger
3.
Games. Which
Let's not forget about Twister.
Yeah, Twister.
they say that they're going to completely change the way the third one's made because his character was integral, which is really sad. So we want to, really, tell this family, we're sorry
Seriously,
for your loss.
the world just lost, like, in my opinion, like the greatest American character actor like that ever lived. As far as I'm concerned, everybody else is playing for second.
Yeah.
Really?
IM3 did it
Yeah,
for me.
absolutely.
I mean, it was unbelievable.
He was the best.
I don't know if I'd say the
I mean,
best.
damn.
But
He was the Chris Farley of drama.
I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I don't know. Chris
just,
Farley's awesome.
The dude who died too early, who had way more shit to offer.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
true.
give you that. I'll go with that.
So now moving on from sad news to happy news, hopefully, and it's the old guy's pick.
Well, I'll tell you what. For me, it was a really tough. What the hell is new in the news? For, this year's week. I didn't find a whole lot. I did do a little bit of TV news, which I thought was interesting.
Okay.
So there, I don't know if you guys watch NCIS. Mark Harmon. I mean, it's really a neat.
Some of it.
I really like that show. And then they have a spin-off in L.A., which is done with LL Cool J and some of the others. Now, guess what? There'll be a third. There's going to be a third. There'll be NCIS New Orleans.
Oh, thank God it wasn't Miami.
Scott Bakula.
Really?
Yep. He's going to be He's going to be the star of that show.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see him play that role.
It is.
I wonder if one of the characters from the LA one, like Boy Wonder, is going to go down that one.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they tie them together. If it's going to be kind of like CSI did, where they tied a few together. But
well, that was
pretty much separate shows.
Yeah.
Well, that was the one thing I thought about it, how they were all in the same continual universe. I actually thought that was well played.
But as long as they don't do it like they did, like John mentioned, Miami.
Oh God, that was the worst.
So hopefully, as long as they kind of
don't
go to that drasticness. Anyways.
Well, I mean, look
who
was in CSI Miami. The worst actor that ever lived. Sorry.
What was the old line? NYPD Blue was better without him.
I don't know.
I didn't watch much NYPD Blue, but okay.
So, any other news?
I really don't have any movie news that I thought was outstanding. There's a bunch of movies coming out this week, that people may want to see, maybe not want to see. I, Frankenstein.
Instead of that, go watch a movie with Philip Seymour Hoffman in it.
Yeah.
So
go watch The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
I was going to say, there is news.
Or Twister.
There's news I wanted to see what James and Ryan thought. Did either of you two watch The Rescue Rangers growing up? It's a Disney cartoon.
Yes.
They're going to
I don't want to see it.
They're going to do a Smurfs version of it.
Oh,
they're going to make a
live action version.
A live action hybrid. So it's going to be CGI with live actors. And I've read a couple of opinions on it, and everybody has the same response.
No.
Why?
Yeah, why?
Yeah.
I mean, because Disney, aren't you making enough money off of Marvel? Do you really need to drag out something from my childhood? Bastardize it?
Yeah,
they're doing this Lego thing with.
Aren't you about to own the world with the release of Star Wars? I mean.
Right.
What the hell?
Jeez.
There was
Will Ferrell's doing some kind of movie with Lego.
Yeah.
Somehow. Well, the Lego thing, is it live? Is it a cartoon or live action? Because the Lego
live action.
Because the cartoons, there's actually a lot of the Lego cartoon movies and series that are actually doing really well.
They're actually pretty damn good.
They are.
Well, as soon as you put Will Ferrell in something, as far as I'm concerned, it ruins the movie.
Wait. So we're tied on two people who really dislike Will Ferrell versus two people who like him.
Sorry.
I like that. I'm finally, we're leveling out here. And
he's playing the bad guy or something?
Who knows?
And the other one, I was going to see what you guys saying, because I actually thought I was happy about this. There won't be a Resident Evil movie this year.
Wow.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Bum me out.
My response on Facebook was the best news I've heard all day.
Mila Jokovic going to go run something else?
Like, I don't know. How about another Three Musketeers movie?
Oh, wow. That man. Trying to forget about that one.
I can't let you forget about that. Come on, Dumas is pissed. And he's been dead for a long time.
Wow.
Anyways,
What, nobody read?
No, I just, again, I apologize. I just didn't see anything that sparked
I'm kind of in the same boat as you. There's really nothing exciting.
There's nothing mind-blowing. Yeah. Like, the most mind-blowing two things I saw out there that people were responding to was the second trailer for Captain America and the newish trailer for the RoboCop movie coming out on February 12th.
Now there's an interesting.
Those are both going to be cool looking, but hey, I'm legitimately excited for the NCIS whatever with Scott Bakula. I was a big Quantum Leap fan.
There you go. At least we got that part out, huh?
And hopefully this time there's going to be less him dressing in drag.
Let me ask you guys a question. What do you think about another RoboCop? I mean, really?
Did you remember how shitty the first one was?
Yeah.
I'm excited about it because the first one, well, it's not a good movie, but it set kind of an 80s precedent on violence. And
and it got worse from there.
Oh, yeah, well, second there was a second one that made no sense, and there's the Disney version, which later on became a series, is the third one. I'm looking forward to this one because it's a reboot. I'm looking forward to their take on it, but I'm not sure how you're going to make RoboCop a good movie, especially a PG-13 movie.
My problem is that, they're really putting nothing new out.
Hey, haven't we had this discussion?
We've had this conversation
almost every
many
week.
times.
Here they go. They just can't come up with something new.
And that's where it's getting tiring, and they're just beating the same damn horse over and over again.
So that's what they got the horse's head from Godfather.
Yeah, they beat the crap out of the rest of the body.
I'm going to predict they're going to put an anti-gun theme in this one.
Back in the day, at least, people would, or studios would find, they would option books and in stories from other media,
right.
But it's this weird snake eating its own tail situation now when they're just recycling stuff that's not even 10 years old, 20 years old.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to mention that we do have a Facebook page. If you hate our show, like our show, or have a theme or a movie you'd like us to review, make sure you write us, tell us, and let us know what you think.
Join in the fun.
Matter of fact, if you want to bash a movie, hell, but we're always up for talking crap about movies, as you can tell. And next week's movie...
Taxi Driver, I'll kill you.
No.
Or Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, you're on the list.
Next week is a theater pick, and we all picked the Marky Mark, a.k.a. Mark Wahlberg, new movie called Lone Survivor, which is based on a true story.
Based. Remember that, based.
It's not a documentary.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Some of the documentaries I've seen lately, it could be. So, ladies and gentlemen, I gave the movie Godfather 1, Godfather 4 to 5. James gave it a 4 to 5. Ryan gave it a 4 to 5. The old guy gave it a 4 to 5. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
I
was going to say something. I think they're doing because I saw something they say that's going to come out as well.